thing I do see from Elements is so little wave clear. I am terrified for them if they ever fall behind and all of a sudden they've got to deal with those Azir soldiers and Lucian and Thresh in their face.
Kind of tricky. Without wave clear, it's easy to flank if you have a lot of wave clear, like you said, they have no wave clear, right? And it's easy to flank if you have a lot of wave clear setting up for those flanks, buying yourself time when Gambit is knocking on your door. But at the same time, you know, you don't have the time because they'll just push through mid. And that means they'll face the Azir wall up front, and my eyes are on Betsy, and the one thing that speaks against him, farm priority number 1, Cabashard. Farm priority number 1, Forgiven. Betsy ranked 8th in mid laners to get the farm out of all teams, farm share in the game. That means he has almost nothing to work with, while he is the staple, he's the crux of the Gambit composition.
Well, we will find out if he's going to make that one work. We're loading up onto the roof for the 3rd time in the summer split. Gambit in the blue trunks, Elements in the red trunks. Two teams that, truthfully, I have no idea how to evaluate their effective strengths coming into the split.
If
different play styles as well.
If Elements gets pushed on all 3 lanes, this can get ugly really quickly, because out of all junglers that like invading, Diamond Prox is definitely one of them, you know, and with a slippery Eve, not knowing where she is and having the possibility of her being in your jungle in addition to playing a weak early clearing jungler like Sejuani that goes pretty low on the clears, could prove very, very dangerous.
And we'll see if it does. Of course, for everybody that is watching, Forgiven has replaced Pinoy as the AD carry, and Gosu Pepper is, in fact, Edward. He's gone back to his original nickname from several years ago. We've already changed it to Ed Ward with a capitalization on that W. So there's only one new player for anybody who's returning from the spring split.
Good deep ward on the camp from Elements here. I want to somehow figure out where Evelynn starts, because you don't have to see her. If you see her at one camp, you can pretty much predict what she's going to do next in at least the next minute and a half. Give you enough information to play around and play relatively safe. But I just want to reiterate that point. I think Azir can push in Vladimir. I think Gnar can push in Maokai. And I can think Lucian Thresh can push in Urgot, Alistar, especially early levels. So this might be triple pressure for Elements to deal with. And that might be very rough, combined with an early game jungler. Early struggling jungler like Sejuani.
And we'll see what Dexter, rather Diamond, decides to do if his lanes go aggressive. Where does Diamond Prox place his priority on that particular map? We do see JY going top and Froggen dancing just between the two Sand Soldiers.
They know where Dexter starts.
Really a big train.
And that's really huge. Deep ward coming out, they know exactly where he is, so they can predict his movement, especially on a predictable jungler like Sejuani. Double camp here from the bot lanes. See how that evolves. Helps Urgot Alistar more than it helps Thresh Lucian.
Well, I definitely want to take a look at this bottom lane, because it's two duo lanes that we've not seen yet in summer, and Lucian we don't see a whole lot of around the world. So what do you expect at these level 2s? It looks like Forgiven and Gosu Pepper are going to be in a good position to get that early one.
Yeah, basically Elements is yielding to pressure here. They already overpushed. Yes, they're level 2, Pepper and Forgiven, but they push so hard that they're actually not going to deny too many minions. But this is Forgiven style. He'll stack that big lane, and where other carries usually, you know, give away a lot of CS, Forgiven is so potent at poking on the tower that Taz might actually have to drop some CS. And we see Betsy's already knocking on the door. They know where Sejuani is because they know where she started. So Gambit, in theory, has all the information here.
Well, it seems to be playing around that information. A lot of pressure from Betsy. He was pushing Froggen's Vladimir in, as you talked about. And for Diamond, I want to see how this Evelynn works, because, you know, we looked at Amazing's Evelynn in the previous game, and I think it did exactly what Origin needed it to do, but you never felt like the early game presence or that invisibility was super impactful.
And if you know the game really well, you know there's almost no threat of running a good hook by Edward.
And a double flay from Gosu Pepper. Forgiven and Gosu really applying the damage to Tabs and Promiscu. We need to see what sort of CS advantage it eventually yields to, though.
Yeah, and they're basically Alistar at this level 2 has to stake heal, so Edwards, or Gosu Pepper rather, is not scared of getting flash queued and then knocked into the tower because he sees the heal come out. Good poking reaction, and they weren't scared of the gank. Another hook on Tabs.
Again, Tabs applying to the Woolite school of AD carry, eating every death sentence in lane.
And this is how Forgiven likes to play, right? He pushes you into the tower, and this makes your behavior predictable. You are going to go for that CS, and I will hook you in reaction. You know, yes, I might not be able to kill you because I don't have the distance, but we'll whittle you down and we'll out-sustain you eventually and then punish you really hard. Forgiven builds up a small lead up until the point where you're broken and he's not, and then he starts really hammering down.
And we'll see whether or not they can keep that one up. Luckily on the side of Elements, Promise you can heal up Tabs. But as long as his mana is relevant, Gosu does not connect with that Flay. Let's take a look at the rest of the map. We've not actually poked our eyes up top. Small CS advantage for Cabochard, however, JWoww should be able to even that up shortly. Gnaw into Maokai. I'm not expecting a huge amount of action without jungler interaction up top. It's going to be interesting to see who can impact with their teleports. So much simpler on a Maokai than a Gnaw.
Yeah, no counter jungling just from Diamond. He has a liberty to basically go anywhere on the map that he wants because all his lanes have the control. I'd like to see Gambit use that to their advantage.
Well, they do have time. One thing we've looked at, both of the previous games, Crepo, have come in around 36-37 minutes average game time. And they've all actually had relatively slow-ish early games. With Fnatic and UNL, it was that sort of 4 versus 0 map swapping until the eventual tower dive. In this particular matchup, as the previous, it's just standard farming. But look at this, Forgiven, 20 CS up, thanks to all of that pressure from the early game.
Yeah, and Dexter can't really do anything because all his lanes are pushed in. His ganks will, if he gets a gank off, it will be incredibly telegraphed. Diamond's finally moving into the jungle, getting some more information on Elements. And while the goal is even, if you're watching online right here, the biggest problem and what you don't see is the pressure meter and how that's affecting the game. All these towers are getting chipped away at, and that will result in a swing maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes from now, and all the towers from Gambit are 100% HP because nobody's been even close. I think half the Elements members haven't even seen the towers.
Well, I like the idea of the pressure meter. I think I'm going to be revisiting this one with you in games to come, Crepo. And we'll see if the pressure is going to cause Elements to break. Because again, remember, it's only Froggen that's come back from the spring split. Promise you, this is his first game on stage. And for the, Dexter and Tabs, these are returning guys to the setup. Tabs already under a lot of pressure.
Now, a little niche thing you can do here is push in his wave, 55 CS, base for BF sword, and force Urgot to stick on like a longsword tier and maybe another longsword. Really big disparity, but to do that, you relinquish your pressure. So Forgiven might want to do the same thing. Urgot scales pretty awkwardly, like early. You want to kind of deny his tier at the same time. So I think Forgiven will go for the BF pickaxe timing, force a really late tier on Urgot, and then Urgot won't be able to trade either, But Elements is all about this level 6 fight. They want to get level 6 and group up for an objective. But if Gambit prevents them from grouping, they're going to have a rough time.
I want to keep my eye on Diamond Prox as well, how he decides to itemize this Evelyn. He was such a big fan of the Warrior Enchant in the Spring Split when many people were not using it, moving away. And, traditionally we've seen Warrior Enchant and Evelyn, but M-Tone, maybe we'll see something different.
Only 300 gold ahead here though. Like, look at the lanes. Froggen's farming really well in that mid lane, well pushed. JWoww's
do you expect anything different from Froggen?
No.
Even in the Vlad into a Zia, etc.
No, he's farming, sustaining really well. So Gambit's like, they're puncturing the wall, but they're not breaking it, They just don't have a sledgehammer ready yet. So if Elements can hang on and get a good fight, they can definitely like take control of this game. But it's pretty even right now. I'm just worried about their towers.
Well, we'll see if that worry causes Elements any problems, Crepo. We did see Dexter actually hanging out in the Tribush. He's got access to Glacial Prism. Tab's relatively close to level 6, I believe. Catch an eye on that experience meter in a moment. And once the position reverser and Glacial Prism are available, that's a lot of CC. I mean, Dexter's still hanging around. He's been here for a very long time.
Yeah, I think he might even be scared to go into his red jungle. I don't want to say disappointed in Diamond Prox, but I would have liked to see some more counter jungling, given that he had 3 pressuring lanes. I would have liked him to find Dexter, chunk him out, and take control of the game that way, and maybe snowball a dragon. You'll get something, because right now they're going toe-to-toe. Yes, they're pushing, but CS is pretty even across the board. Mine is Forgiven, but that's, expected.
Yeah, and it's the same 20 CS advantage that we've seen all game long. We do finally see the back timing, so it is going to be that BF plus pickaxe.
I think so.
That's the most likely.
He's going BF double longsword. May not have enough gold, but he might also go for a brutalizer, I think, into Ghostblade. Yeah, the build that hasn't changed. That might be to give a I'm guessing here, guys. Should know that, but yeah, let's just assume it hasn't changed.
You haven't needed to build one in a very long time, Crepo.
That is true, but I should know it regardless.
I'll let you off. We did see some backs all across the board. Cabochard grabbed himself that Giant's Belt as well as the Hex Drinker. JWoww grabbed himself a couple of odds and ends. Catalyst, the Ruby Crystal. And we do see with Dexter's relatively late second back, he's actually picked up that Cinder Hulk now as well. Maybe third back, I missed it. And again, we're just going to go back to this farming. So 10 minutes of fast approaching, even gold. That CS advantage that Tabs had built up has been closed. And Manamune picked up as well. That's important for Tabs to at least try to trade with Forgiven. If he gets a few Acid Hunters from range, maybe that can relinquish some of that pressure and lower the meters.
I think Elements is definitely happy with the way this game's going so far. They could have gotten punished, and they survived arguably the roughest part of the game. It looks like some action on bot lane.
Wow, this is a 2v2. It's going to be turned into a 2v3. We do see the hyperkinetic position reverser. A good teleport from JWoww is potentially going to set up a kill here. That is a beautiful flash lantern from Gosu Pepper. He keeps Forgiven alive, but in the backline, Cabochard is teleported in. Now JWoww is a man out of position. He's forced to flash defensively. Gosu Pepper lands the death sentence. That's a flash pulverized from Promiscu as Cabochard is knocked backwards, and Froggen joins in for the fray. This is a 5-on-5 party, and Betsy is the target. One more lantern from Gosu x Edward, and it's Elements that get the kill when everyone comes to play.
By our powers combined, we are Exodia. But that's what I mean, right? If your fight goes long enough and some beautiful re-engages left and right, I think Elements played it pretty clean. I think Gambit got greedy once that extra hook. If Gosu Pepper wasn't so good at landing hooks, I think they would have gotten out there 0 for 0. Elements did get the pressure, but good positioning by Dexter. You know, they forced the play on bottom, and they had the TPs ready, but they had the jungle ready in addition there too. Even though Froggen was pressured and Betsy arrived first, they still survived. Really good fight. A lot of niche, like tiny things that both teams did really well in my opinion. But Elements comes out 1-0, and yeah, they're staying into this game. 500 gold lead right now.
Interesting developments. A little bit down on CS in the AD carry, but obviously the kill over to Elements, and interesting team play. I'm looking forward to seeing these team fights play out. You saw how long that previous one took, because you've got a lot of tankiness to burn through on actually both sides.
One thing that was actually borderline hilarious was that Froggen pulled basically under the 0 LT. He slid underneath, you know, basically untouchable. And maybe that's something why he picked that matchup, because Azir basically, when it's pretty predictable when he's going to ult into a fight, and Froggen managed to get out of there. Diamond's ganking mid lane, no.
He's going to need to get out again. That's a very early Sanguine pull. The Conquering Sands throws Froggen backwards. Yeah, flash burned. We did see him use that ghost to get to the bottom lane earlier. That means if Betsy and Diamond can find an opportunity with Agonies, maybe they can get Froggen. And there's the tower pressure that you had touched on many minutes ago, Crepo. A lot more damage, a lot more chipping away as this minion wave gets cleared.
And this is how Gambit basically can claw back into this game. If a tower is half HP and you basically chunk somebody out of lane, you can almost, at this point in the game, take it down. Whereas Elements, imagine they push somebody out of the lane, they can maybe take half HP of that tower, but then that tower is still fully alive and functioning, and that's the difference. Cabochard throwing Maokai into the wall here.
Well, let's see. This is going to be one of the longest fights we'll ever have, if JWoww sticks to it. Ends up just walking away, and Cabochard committed everything there. I do want to touch one thing. You know, we've looked at these towers. Elements are going to take forever to take towers down. Vladimir is one of, if not the worst champion to take towers down. Just build some AP, but Mango Tanky, we'll see where he goes with Urgot. And then so many melee champions.
In a
it's
1v1
really
split push,
difficult.
in a 1v1 split with Vladimir, you can actually chunk out the enemy and take the tower that way. But yeah, straight on 5-man siege, they're just going to ignore the towers, you know? Just going to dive him, just AoE him. But that's going to be hard, you know? So what Elements wants to do is draw Gambit out, bait him into an objective, and then flank him.
Well, Froggen and Dexter, they've killed Diamond.
So this is a really beautiful snowball play. They saw that Diamond base, Betsy wanted the base. Dexter slowed down Betsy's base, enough for Froggen to come in. They pushed in the wave, now they had the pressure, disappeared into the dark, moved into the jungle, and found Evelyn there. This is like chain reaction in League of Legends. And I really like seeing this, going aggressive with your jungle when you know the enemy's in base. They knew if somebody faced 6, Betsy's likely not to be there in time, and really solid move. And this is what Amazing said on the desk earlier. Yeah, Eve is prone to being blown up, and we just saw it there.
Now, well played by Elements, planning a few steps ahead. As we do see the first tower falls, and surprise, surprise, it is Forgiven securing yet another first tower of the game. Promiscu has roamed up to aid the low hit points Froggen, but we do see that Diamond is coming up to reply. So, Crepo, teleports are not available yet for either of these top laners, and we're starting to see some shuffling around the map.
Yeah, very crucial point. They push him bot wave. Tabs is busy dealing with that. Alistair has shown all the information is the map for Gambit. Where are they going to go? Are they going to take another tower? Because that will snowball a third tower pretty immediately right after. So this is a very crucial moment of the game right now.
And the decision seems to be middle. Gosu Pepper's moving that way. Pickaxe and Brutalizer completed for Forgiven. Brutalizer picked up for Tabs as well. And you can see Tabs making his way
he doesn't know what
towards
to do
the
right
mid lane. Wants to farm, wants to go mid. The decision, I mean, there's wards in Gambit's jungle, but they've only just seen Gosu Pepper.
Yeah, they know what's coming, but sometimes you just can't stop it. You know, Tabs is like, do I drop this wave? Do you need me mid? And they're like, yeah, well, I don't think we can hold it anyways. We don't want to lose that farm on bottom. This is Gambit snowballing that third pressure I said earlier. Yeah, maybe not 5 minutes from now, but 10 minutes from now at the 14-minute mark. They take down a second tower. Azir just replaces that with one of his own. Now they can rotate into the topside red jungle and start working on the top tower, or send somebody bot to pick up that farm that Tab's actually pushing too slow. You know, you said it earlier. Got no wave clear, very predictable wave management, and basically Gambit playing, you know, a farm style now.
Wow, 15 minutes. We've got 2 kills on the board. Gonna keep going back to those graphs we showed at the,
we like our
top of the day.
Spellsy did a lot of work, guys.
The one thing I do want to highlight, though, the gold is very, very even for both Gambit and Elements. And we'll carry on with the story in a moment because Cabochard, no Mega Knot, and there is a little bit of toys to play with. Promiscu in the tri-bush. You see Dexter hiding in the top lane. And they may want themselves a Mega Knot for dinner.
Marcel felt camp, but right now it's Marcel top camp. Trevor.
Blue team's turret has been destroyed.
Trevor, hello?
I was deciding whether or not you deserve to carry on with that one. All right, Gosu's moved up. It's now a 3v2, but Mega Knot is charging. Knot's no longer tired. And we'll go back to a little bit of story time as the engage is going to get thwarted by the hop. Despite Forgiven not being an SK, early tower pressure, rotating 1, 2, and 3, and then potentially setting up for a 1-3-1. That was the eloquence of SK Gaming in Spring Split. Forgiven has changed teams and he's imposed that similar play style.
Oh yeah, Forgiven will not play your style. You will play Forgiven style. Well, but he's so good at it.
It got them to the playoffs, and then unfortunately some misplays against Unicorns of Love cost them a position in the finals. But the question is then, Elements, let's assume they predicted the draft. They knew the Azir is coming. They got their hands on Sejuani. They got Vladimir, which has done well against the Emperor's Divide. Do Elements also have a gameplay plan against the Forgiven component?
I don't like Betsy dropping this mid tower here. Gambit almost had a 3-for-0 tower change. Elements is grouping on a mid lane. This could be a dive.
Well, we're about to find out. 2v4 in favor of Elements. And we do see the 3 members of Gambit. They continue to push top with all of the attack damage and speed that Forgiven has to play with. He unfortunately doesn't have the minions to back him up though.
Yeah, 3-man in top lane. Dragon comes up though, so if this works for a trade, it's okay for Gambit. If Gambit does not get a tier 2, they're actually in trouble because then they made a positional misplay.
There's no one here to contest. Let's take a look at that top lane tower. They've run out of minions. Gosu Pepper and Diamond not going to tank that one out. Not a lot of combined armor between them. However, Betsy and Cabochard now. So let's see whether or not this flank works out in favor of Elements. Crepo, TLDR, the positional dancing and costs. Elements obviously coming out a little bit ahead in some places, but they may lose top now.
Yeah, really good rotational play from Gambit here, you know, from mid to top, and now they're going on JWoww.
Well, JWoww's caught out. The Nars available. Nars into the turret. We saw a flash on the bottom. Now tower is secured. JWoww gets taken away. Diamond is going to flash away. Continues to survive. Summon a heal. From Forgiven keeps him out, but it's JWoww that gets the kill. We do see Dexter securing one as now Froggen continues to chase with Hemoplague. The pop plus the pop manages to secure it. And it's just kill after kill after kill. Gambit overstay their welcome. Dexter gets 2. Froggen gets another. Cabochard.
So Gambit with
he tried his best.
The objective slow methodical play, and Elements with the C hero, kill hero, kind of role reversal from season 2 back in the day. But it seems to be working. And you see, you know, once Elements has their grasp on a team fight, 5v5, they absolutely destroy it. You know, Vladimir jumping on Forgiven, there is nothing a short range AD carry can do. You know, Edward immediately, or Gosu Pepper, immediately exhausted Froggen. That exhaust ran off by the time Hemoplague popped almost. You know, Forgiven had to flash out of the fight. Basically, they just got aced 5-for-0, 5-for-1, and Elements in a 5v5 is looking strong. Gambit has to avoid this.
This is such an interesting dynamic. 7 kills, 2 dragons, and only 1,000 gold up because Elements have given up 4 of their towers. They're also down 40 CS in the AD carry, 20 top, and Diamond eats a whole lot of damage from those Acid Hunters. But you kind of think the lead should be bigger for Elements, but they've given up a lot of their map.
No, I think it actually tells the story of the game perfectly here, and I think Gambit greeded a little bit for that tier 2. They could have played the positions a little better. I think Betsy backed out of mid lane a little earlier, so they could have slowed down the bleeding and done more damage themselves. And as a result of that, they ended up in a situation where they were flankable, and Elements was able to group, and they just destroyed them. You saw, you know, Froggen comes from one side, Sejuani from the other side. Promiscuous, so tanky. These long, drawn-out fights in the jungle, unless they get a good Azir ultimate, is not what Gambit wants at the moment.
20 minutes on the clock. 600 gold. That's it. That's all that is between these teams. You can see the items on the bottom of your screen. Edge picked up now Forgiven as we set ourselves up for another team fight. Gambit, if they want to pick this one, they're going up against the 5. That's the Emperor's Divide. We do see the Hemoblade down, and Betsy is gone. The Azir turret is trying to slow down the pace, but Gambit have lost another member as Elements are just barreling forward. Gambit keep putting themselves in a 5v5 position against this Yu-Gi-Oh! Team comp that Crepo is coined.
And that's all right, but Betsy, he went around a corner and then went back. You know, you have to be really respectful of Elements engaged, because these guys will not hesitate a second to pull the trigger, because that's what their comp is built on. And looking back, I think Elements has crossed this river maybe once. Like in the last 10 minutes, they crossed it once for that tier 1 tower in bottom, but they seem to be donated kills by Gambit on their half of the map, and they're not giving anything away, and eventually they'll take down these towers from Gambit, and then they'll start growing their gold lead. So Gambit really needs to figure it out, because they're on a timer.
It's quite interesting, actually. If we go back again to Picks and Bans, we step back, and a few minutes ago I said, do you feel Elements have got a gameplay plan for the Forgiven Elements? And this defensive play, waiting for Gambit to push, waiting for Forgiven to go for towers, and then picking fights, may have been the game plan from the beginning. Elements have responded a few times to the team fights because they're not going to take towers. I mean, let's be frank. Against wave clear from Lucian and Azir, it's taken 21 minutes to take this top tower down, and it was uncontested.
Yeah,
maybe.
But it feels like some composition that the community flawed Element or told the Elements a lot in the past. You know, you're playing super passive, you're waiting until you charge up, and it's nice now in the late game, but can this composition get punished? You know, could Gambit have closed this out better? Could Diamond have invaded a little more, you know, kept Dexter down? Because let's not forget, Dexter got his 1-6 for free. Yeah. AFK jungle, and that's exactly what Sejuani wants. Props to Elements to basically almost even CS under so much pressure. Really well played by them. They lost their towers, but then they traded it for kills, so they were fine to do that. But some of these kills Gambit should have not given away, so in theory, Gambit's composition could have trumped that. But then again, Elements is playing beautifully, and
yeah,
they were confident going into this week. They had decent scrim results, allegedly, so let's see how this pans out.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda, I guess. Hindsight's being what it is.
Story of my life.
Diamond Prox
could have made it to Worlds.
Did actually complete that Magus enchantment on his jungle Evelyn. What a detour from what we've been seeing. And this time around, Ghosty Pepper unable to connect onto Tabs. Tabs 55 CS behind. But look at that ring of vision that Elements has set up towards that top inner turret. If they find the opportunity to push it down, they can. Alternatively, Dragon's up in 40. So where do Elements set their sights, Crepo?
I really like the Vladimir pick in the late game because it's such a phenomenal split pusher. He has a Will of the Ancients router, and he has Spellbound, but here's Dexter.
Well, Diamond Prox has already thrown down Agony's Embrace. The Death Sentence connects onto a giant tree, and Elements peel away. This has cost them absolutely nothing. The Culling's down, Agony's down, the box is down. If a team fight were to break out, Elements already had a fantastic comp and a lead, and now they have 3 less ultimates to worry about.
Yeah, Elements basically open up the map by sending Frog on top, getting deports. Gambit tried to respawn, but they almost fell into that same trap of the 5v5 again. Now Jawa is going bottom to fix that wave. This is a moment where Gambit can breathe. Top lane is pushing out, bot lane is being dealt with by Elements, so this is where they have to strike. Either push him and get tier 2, or force a fight, but there's always the risk of a TP flank.
Well, TP is available for JWoww, and it does look like the fight is going to be happening. Gambit, 5 members set up. Dexter's been caught out. Diamond Prox sinks the fangs in. Froggen actually flashes forward for this one. 2 exhausts back and forth as Froggen is gone. Froggen gets him with the Hemoblade. The Gnar knocks Elements against the wall, and it's a trade 1-for-1. Hyperkinetic position reverser holds Betsy in place, and Betsy is down as Dexter goes unstoppable at 5-0-3. They've traded 1 for 2, but it's not over yet. Elements have got wards towards the top lane. They've got Dragon to peel back to. What can Elements take with the numbers advantage?
Really good read by both teams. You know, Elements, if they were going to defend that tier 2 from the same choke point, then you lose against an Azir. If you come from 2 sides, they can always stop the bleeding on 1. They engaged on Dexter. He went over the wall, but then threw his ulti backwards, aided Froggen, Promiscuous with a flash combo on Forgiven. Forgiven auto-attack maybe twice at 5, immediately dropped. And then, again, 5v5 situation. Elements comes out on top.
And they do manage to secure their... Well, not yet. Let's see. Cabashot going to try steal. Basically is going to be safe. We're a little ahead of myself there. Third dragon of the game at 24 minutes.
Okay,
here's
watch
the
this.
fight.
They engage on one of the flanks. This is what you always have to do if you get flanked. Go on one of side, ulti another, but Berniscus flashes over the zero. Double combo on Edward, Unforgiven. Nobody can say Forgiven. JWoww flanks with his TP. Really beautiful play by Elements. Now Dexter, he went over the wall. He's chasing. He's like, guys, I'm still here. I'm coming. Fight's already over. They take down Betsy. He's not strong enough, and Elements in just a good position in this game. They've made it to the late game. They could bait Baron, unless Gambit sneaks it right now.
Well, Gambit have started this one. Elements are a little late to respond. 5,000 HP, it's below half.
50,
Dexter's
50.
nearby. Flash and Smite are available. Down to 1,700. Baron's on the back line. It's stolen by Elements. Dexter manages to do it in his opening LCS game. Tabs manages to shut down Diamond and position her versus Betsy back into the middle of the squad as Promiscu boots Goshu Pepper away. The prison locks up Forgiven and sends him back to the fountain. A triple kill for Tabs, a Baron steal for Dexter, and Elements have completely taken control of the game.
This may look bad from Gambit. Honestly, I think it was one of the better plays they could do if they did not go for that Baron right now, and Elements was a little slower to react. They could have gotten on the Baron, stayed in the game. Otherwise, Elements would have pushed them out. 5-man grouped, baited the Baron, and the game would be likely be over. So good read from Gambit to do that. However, 50-50 smite. Dexter, beautiful smite. I think he smited after Diamond Proc sent out his, but regardless, I think they would have lost the fight anyways. You know, they used the zero to disengage. Dexter was in the pit. The wombo combo comes out again, and then, you know, Gambit just can't handle with that, and they're not strong enough to 1-3-1 anymore. And the follow 1-3-1 was something we saw in SK2.
Oh, the invisible Elements kill the invisible Diamond. He almost made it to that lantern.
See, hero kill hero.
Well, Elements 14-1. The outer turret in the bottom lane is still standing. There is, what, 8,000 gold lead, but there's only 2 turrets secured for Elements. That's from top and middle. Because their champions are so bad at taking towers down.
And Tabs loves it when a plan comes together. He takes his revenge at the 27-minute mark. They take down the bottom tier 1 tower. Eventually, they get it, you know. Patience, nice and steady.
Hashtag worth is definitely the case. Elements have, you know, they ran a little bit of a gamble in this comp. No wave clear, requiring scaling, needing time, but they got it. They got everything they needed, and they picked such great team fights.
And this is what I like about the Baron change. Like, you can play these comps that don't usually give you an opening to break open a siege, but you can get Baron, you can control an objective, get that objective, and that leads to more sieging potential. Sieging into an Azir is incredibly hard, even with Baron creeps out there. So they'll have to introduce a split push component, so they knock on 2 doors at once, and then basically barge in once the Azir is not there. And they're doing this, you know, some pressure bot. I imagine they'll send Frog and split pushing top, buffing creeps, or somebody to that bot lane right now, open up the defense. But at this point, they might as well straight up dive too, but it's dangerous against an Azir.
Yeah, with that Baron buff on, even though Cabashard's got that teleport advantage, not really going to see any massive opportunities for him. And we break the 10,000 gold lead. It's been slow going, but Elements have inched away, chipped away a lead, built up this mountain that Gambit now needs to overcome. They have 1 kill on the board. 1 kill on the board.
The worst part is they're not going to get any more kills. JWoww, super tanky. Frog is super tanky. And has a pull, you know, twice. Alistar, super tanky. You know, Tabs, he has a Frozen Heart. He's an 80 carry with a Frozen Heart, and they're going in.
Well, let's see who they decide to focus. Betsy gets caught up by the Hemoplague. They jump onto Goshu Pepper. Diamonds on the sideline gets a huge Agony's Embrace. That's a 3-man Gnar up against the wall. Promiscu's in a little bit of trouble, but Froggen is sustaining his way through Betsy's damage. Another kill for Elements, another tower for Elements. Baron buff has worn out, but when you got a 5v4, there's no one that can stop you. Gambit on the inhibitor turrets. Elements on Gambit's inhibitor turret in the top lane. And they should be able to secure the inhibitor as well. Another great team fight. That's not the man you want, Goshu. Elements, the base is cracked open. Elements, fantastic showing from the 15 to 30 minute mark.
Yeah, and so tanky, you know, they just dove 2 towers and they barely got below. One of the members got below half HP, and then Froggen maybe a little lower too. And just shows, you know, the strength of the composition from Elements here in the lake.
We'll ignore that one. Lantern's there, Lantern's not relevant, and Tabs gets another one.
Didn't fail the combo, he ran out of mana for Q. It's the worst feeling in the world. You tap W, you tap Q, and nothing happens. You're like, oh, I'm that guy. But Luckily for him, it happened when he's 12,000 goal ahead.
It did indeed. I thought that was Tabs that just got out of the way of Gosu Pepper's spells. JWoww uses the scuttle grab
taxi to get out.
to scuttle taxi. And then a defensive flash. Elements get their 16th kill. And ironic, the invisible death or the invisible kills onto Diamond. You feel so safe when you're able, no one can see you, but if there's 5 people in a bush, it will eventually. And again, just that ring of vision. Crapper, every single time I look at this mini-map, Elements are pushing their wards deeper and deeper towards the objectives that they set their sights on.
Yeah, exactly. And now they're getting ready for their 4th dragon. And the thing is, at this point, Gambit has to stop the bleeding. They have to get a dragon, or eventually Elements will get 5. But grouping around an objective means 5v5, and unless you get a really solid 0 and choke point, you're not going to win a fight. And even then, Elements at this point is so tanky. It's so hard. Promiscu going in.
He does manage to get the combo. Betsy instantly throws down the hourglass. The lantern should time out before he can get to it. Not even going to be needed. Now Diamond Prox is in trouble. Elements are just running him down. Gets thrown back into the river by Tabs, who's now 5-0 and 7. Promiscu, another new support on the stage. 0-0-15. More than 2 times the impressive score that James Bond would have put on the map. And Dragon, not even a priority here for Elements.
Really solid itemization as well. We said earlier, Alistar's so tanky, you know. All Elements need to do is find an engagement window. They put the Aegis of the Legion on Dexter, and that means both top lane and support can build Righteous Glory and get that engage, because Sejuani is really good at following engage too. So they have so many engage tools on these different roles. Alistar is usually really hard to get into people, but with nice solid flashes, really good use of Righteous Glory, and then blocking the Lantern. Promiscu is playing a fearless game, and it's really nice to see that for his first time in the LCS ever. And
it's fantastic to see the follow-up performance from Mithy in the previous game. You know, Mithy, of course, returning to the stage. He's playing on a world stage as well. Promiscu, this is his first match against Gambit, against Gosu, Pepper, and Forgiven, 2 of the most seasoned players in the LCS. In lane, held his own, and just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
A worthy success.
Exactly. The thing that we do have to say, though, if you look at Elements, you look at this game and this play style, they were given a lot of time. They were given the freedom to get to this position, and I do feel they had a great read on Gambit. Picks and bans seemed to go somewhat predictable. They got some comfortable picks. I mean, the Vladimir has done great into the Azir.
I don't know, you should, I think give it, oh hang on, Froggen's getting caught.
Well, let's see, Exhaust is out, Sanguine is available, as is the Hourglass. Froggen holding on to him, throws down the Hemo Plate, then he pulls away. Hemo Plate's gonna pop, the Hourglass is in a moment, and it's an instant kill there. Now forced to flash away, it's not over yet. Cobra Shot gets reversed in, but he's about to become a Mega Gnar. He crunches over the wall. We see Acid Hunter after Acid Hunter connecting. Tabs gets himself to what looked like a jump on Froggen, turned out to be a jump on Gambit. It's not done yet, as Dexter has the Glacial Prison. Is he going to throw it out? We do see Promiscu, maybe going to find him. Conqueror, the King of the Sands. Now still wants to look. This is a teleport from JWoww as well. That is a massive, massive cow. And the wall is going to keep Dexter out for a moment or two, but it's simply not enough. 22-1. In the opening game of the summer split. Elements putting on a statement of a performance.
I think Power of Evil was a little early with his quote about it's going to be a bloodbath. Same day, wrong match. This is really, really brutal, but we have to remember how this came to be, right? This game was by no means a complete stomp. There was a really, really crucial point in the game where Elements managed to hang on just enough to equalize that tower goal lead loss. Gold loss rather with kills, and then they got into the late game. Of course they're going to win the late game, but we saw that last season as well. Elements kept going for that late game comps, but they got punished sometimes. But looks like they've learned to adapt, and a really, really solid performance. Really impressed by Promiscu as well, and Froggen, the only member returning from Elements with 100% death participation. Wow. Froggen feeder.
One more team fight, and we see Gambit throwing everything at Elements. It's just not enough. Froggen's in trouble. He will go down for the second time. Definitely the feeder on the Elements squad, as Elements bite off a little more than they can chew this time around. We've seen 2 games ending around the 36-37 minute mark. Elements really just trying to keep up tradition here, I think, as they are going to delay this. Promiscu comes in to save Tabs. Tabs low on mana. Forgiven looking for more. He's got red buff. That's good another kill on the board. Promiscu, the hype is no longer there. You've given up the 3rd kill of the game to Gambit. 0-1 and 17. Super minions in middle. Super minions bottom. just a matter of time before they close this up. Minions are maybe, wow, Emperor's Divide just to protect this inhibitor. And I think that should be enough.
Yes, it is.
We held our breath. We held our breath there.
I don't want to be the guy that predicts that wrong, you know. PvE, you know, predictable minion. But let's take a step back here. This game is obviously turning to a very one-sided show from Elements right now. I just want to take a look back at the champion select. You know, they gave a 0 away. They seem to have a plan for it, basically either swapping it into the team or having Froggen be able to flank from different sides or pull under it. We know that Betsy doesn't get the most resources or side lane farm on Gambit, while he still is the crux of their composition. Kind of makes sense, but again, we had questions, right? What is Forgiven gonna do? Well, the answer is exactly the same like he did in SK. What's Cabochard gonna do? Farm a lot, but JWoww in a lane matchup that is usually dominated by Gnar, he kept on really well. Even CS didn't need any attention from his jungle and allowed Dexter to play around the bot lane. They shut Forgiven down by having counter gank potential and TPs ready. Froggen roamed a little later than Betsy, but he joined the party as well and
managed to make it work.
Yeah, worked well.
And the interesting thing about that, Forgiven imposes the Forgiven element on the game within the first 20 minutes. And Gambit had some mid to late game poor shot calling in the spring split. And you can argue overstaying for that top lane in a turret. It was one of the big turning points. So
it was
maybe
really close though. You have to remember that was really close. If they escaped there, it was a nice trade. And I like Gambit's sequence in which they took the towers. I think that was done well. I think the idea was right. The execution was slightly lacking. Let's not forget, Gambit went out on some members went out on social media, said they had a little trouble practicing. But Elements going for the final push here.
Well, that definitely seems to be the case. Cabochard's doing what he can as Mega Knock. He's going to throw 3 members of Elements forward as Betsy's going to knock them upward. Cabochard does survive until that last Acid Hunter from Tabs. Another kill for Froggen as the Emo Plague is now ticking away. Ghostly Pepper's trying to get out. Froggen is chasing all the way forward. The Hourglass is on the steps, and that's going to be his death. He even pulls away for a few more swag points. Elements on the back line, destroying the Nexus. Massive smiles from Elements as they pick up their first win in summer. Not only does Promiscu show up on the big stage against Gambit, against players with such a wealth of experience, the whole team just seems to be, they work that composition well.
And taking a quick look here, you know, JWoww involved in 19 out of 26 kills, you know, Dexter involved in 20, Froggen involved in 20, Tabs involved in 18, that's the least. And then 20 assists coming out of Promiscu as well. We see this result, you know, explains the team compositions. Everybody wants to be in those fights. Everybody wants those assists. Very high kill participation for every member in Elements comp, and it just highlights Gambit couldn't keep them spread. You know, they let them group, and
it also tells the story of the early game about how individualized and compartmentalized every single lane was. Everybody was left to their own devices. Neither Dexter, because he's on Sejuani, could make an impact, or Diamond, arguably because of his decision-making, to not really challenge Dexter.
I don't want to call it Diamond here because I don't know, but I think there was a possibility for maybe some counter jungling.
All three lanes were pushing in favor of Gambit towards Elements. You know, you play for mid to late game, and then Elements outplay you in team fights. I mean, that's sort of the story of this match.
But we'll see how Gambit evolves. Obviously, adding a new player with such a distinctive playstyle like Forgiven, but really good at that particular playstyle, needs some time to work. We'll see a couple weeks in, week 3, week 4. That's when I'm really going to start judging Gambit. That's when I think they've had enough time to practice with Forgiven. But let's see if also Elements, are they going to continue the same style? Because you don't want to be linear in this style, because then eventually in drafts you will get punished. But so far, so good.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in recent weeks the passive playstyle seems to be yielding slightly less results because the more aggressive, proactive teams seem to be able to find their way into the game. But the one thing you also got to step back, as you did mention right near the end there, Gambit, they have said they had some problems, you know, getting themselves set up, getting themselves practiced. For a team that had, let's say, difficulties of whatever degree, they still put up a decent performance. They played around Forgiven. As you said, they got an early lead, they got early map control, and then some small misplays here and there cost them control. With a bit more refinement, maybe they could get themselves into even better positions in future games.
Yeah, like solid rotational play, right? They knocked down half HP on every tower, took down bot lane, sent somebody mid, you know, noticed that Tabs, that one moment where Tabs was hesitating, do I go mid, do I go bot, you know, they took that mid tower, then they went for top. Betsy wanted to facilitate that top tower by roaming, but he got caught off in the river, and that allowed Elements to push in, just get that one tower, some breathing room, you know. Every time Gambit left a little room to breathe, but they almost suffocated Elements completely, and we saw that in Spring Split when we played against them. We played a similar comp, very laid back, very good late game. If you look at the comps, you're like, yeah, we're going to wreck them late game team fights. Didn't happen because Diamond had Nidalee. He was constantly in our face, and I lacked that a bit. You know, I would have liked to see more aggression from Diamond, especially in these triple push scenarios. Yeah,
it definitely needed to be the case. Simply not a factor for Gambit. A lot more questions to answer. I think as a team, you know, we saw some very good things. I think Edward, now goes to Pepper in lane, was a lot more impressive than I feel he has been. Maybe it is a testament because of the matchup. You know, got a little easier to land those death sentences on, arguably. But it was good to see the confident play. It was good to see Gosu really going for it. When we saw him leaving Pinoy at times towards the latter half of the Spring Split. So
I don't think we can fault him for much. You know, yes, those hooks were predictable slightly because Tabs had to walk for minions, but he landed them. You know, there's not more you can do at that point. Hook, flay, out sustain, out poke. There was a 25 CS lead. Forgiven, I think he could have played for that BF pickaxe if he wanted. He opted not to. Tabs had a very late tier, so the bot lane was definitely winning, and that's what prompted the rotational play. Remember, bot tower goes down first, then mid, then top. So definitely good bot lane play. I really look forward to seeing more 2v2s, but he got cut out by the team composition. What is Lucian going to do against the Sejuani, Vladimir, Maokai Flash W? You know, everybody wants to get forgiven, and there's not enough damage coming out to punish because Elements is so tanky.
I like that. And around the 30-minute mark, I recall you saying, well, no one's going to die anymore. There's simply too much tankiness and too many options.
Unless you're under the fountain.
Multiple pools, multiple hourglasses. We'll give him that. I mean, Feeder Froggen, of the 4 deaths in Elements, Froggen gave up 3 of them. I think he earned those, to be fair. So strong showing from Elements. Gambit, unfortunately, drop their game. We're going to throw this one over to the analyst desk to take a look at Elements' strong start to the Summer Split.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're here with Froggen and Dexter. Very first victory for the revamped Elements lineup. Froggen, Crepo just calling you feeder in that one. Jeez, I mean, from your friends.
I mean, I died 2 times because I tried to dive the fountain. That's maybe not the smartest decision.
No, exactly. You guys had a really, really good game all around. Very interesting game as well because it was all about the kills, but not really the golden towers early. Tell us about your game plan, Dexter.
The game plan was basically, okay, we got the draft that we wanted basically, but the Sejuani was like, I didn't really want to play Sejuani in that game because it just felt too slow. And we wanted to have some more aggressive jungler, but they banned it out. So I kind of had to play Sejuani here because it was just too good to not pick it. And then we just like, okay, we take a slow early game. It's fine if we give up the dragon. But the second I hit level 6, I just go bot lane and it's 3 kills because it's Urgot, Alistar, and Sejuani. So that was the only game plan pretty much, and we executed it pretty well, I think.
So to me, that game, you could take the nameplates off and it'll look like Gambit maybe were like SK from last season. They took the first 3 turrets down very quickly. When you're in that situation, you guys had, I think, 2 kills at that point. Did you quickly realize that you just had to pick up kills as opposed to try and get turrets, Froggen?
No, I think it's more our position is around team fighting. And we already knew from the start that Azir will constantly push, and their bot lane, they have Forgiven, so he will constantly push too. So we expected all that early tower damage, and